LitRPG, healer-protagonist, female MC, and a world that is genuinely structurally built to make her life hard. This series has a pretty solid rating, but on Goodreads, one of the most viewed reviews is from someone who almost quit 3 separate times, because of the sexism. So who is this book actually for? That's what we're figuring out today. Let's talk about Beneath the Dragoneye Moons. Hey darling, Boyce here. Welcome back to my channel. Here it is my goal to help you find your next book obsession. I am comfy, I am cozy, and I am ready to dive into today's video. Today we're looking at Oathbound Healer, and that's book 1 of the Beneath the Dragoneye Moons series by Selkie Myth, and I'm going to help you figure out if this belongs on your TBR or your absolutely not list. So here's the thing. This series is 16 books long. 16. And before you either sprint to go buy it or sprint in the opposite direction, I want to make sure you actually know what you're getting into. So I'm breaking this into 2 videos. Today, book 1 only, and next week I'm going to be dropping a full series overview. Every book, what changes, what holds up, what fails, so you can decide if the whole commitment is worth it to you. By the end of today's video, you'll know whether book 1 is your thing. And if it is, I'll see you next week for the rest. If you're new here and you like honest research-backed book talk without the hype, please hit subscribe because we have a lot of fun here and I would love for you to be part of this awesome community. So let's talk about what this video is and what it is not. This is a first look, and so a quick note on what a first look is, because I do these a little differently than a lot of booktubers. I am not doing a vibe check, I am not doing a hype check. I go through hundreds of reader reviews. The people who loved it, the people who rage quit, and I pull out the patterns so you don't have to. My goal is to give you the clearest possible picture of who this book is actually for before you spend your time and money on it. Now, I'm always going to be upfront and honest with you. It is not my goal to sell you books, and though I will always be respectful and kind to the authors I talk about, I want to be genuine when it comes to both the strengths and the weaknesses in the story. So everything I say today, and always in my first looks, will be said with love and respect, even though some of it may come across as critical. Oh, actually, before we dive in, a quick content warning, because this book has a few things I want you to know about up front. The story is set in a patriarchal society modeled on ancient Rome, and it depicts that with real detail. That includes an arranged marriage situation involving a threatening suitor. I'm sorry, I can't be more explicit. YouTube has a lot of censorship. But a very threatening suitor that drives a major plot decision. It's handled as stakes. It's not gratuitous violence, but it is there. There's also a scene involving DV against a secondary character, and a child character does die. It's the inciting incident for the whole story, so it's not like, again, gratuitous violence, but it is present. And forced labor, again, I'm sorry, I can't be more explicit, but that YouTube hates words. Forced labor exists in this world as a legal and economic mechanism. It's world building rather than a central focus, but it is messed up and it does come up. If any of those are hard stops for you, now you know. And if not, let's talk about the book. So let's talk about the data. This series is incredibly well rated. On Royal Road, we're looking at 1.3 million views and 13,000 followers with a 4.5 average rating on about 6,300 ratings. On Amazon, we're looking at a 4.6 average on over 30,000 reviews. And on Goodreads, we're looking at about a 4.2 average rating for the series. So what's next? The concept. Let's talk about Oathbound Healer and its overall story. This is an Isekai progression fantasy lit RPG. We're talking stats, skills, classes, levels, the whole shebang. Our main character is Elaine. She's a 20-year-old woman from modern-day Earth who dies and gets reincarnated as a baby in a world called Palos. She keeps some of her memories, including her knowledge of biology and medicine, which becomes genuinely important later, but she has to grow up all over again from scratch. Words, I need more caffeine. Palos is inspired by ancient Rome, pre-industrial, pre-germ theory, gods are real and occasionally metal, and also, dinosaurs are out there trying to eat people. Because why not? The system on Palos is built into the world itself. It unlocks for everyone at age 8, and it tracks what you've been doing in the background, and then assigns you stats, classes, and skills based on how you've actually been living your life. You can swap skills in and out, but if you drop a skill and pick it up later, it resets to level 1. You don't get that progress back. That mechanic ends up mattering a lot to the story in ways that the marketing doesn't really tell you about, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. Now, the thing you need to know about Palos, the thing that shapes everything about this book, is that, as I mentioned before, it is a deeply patriarchal society. Women cannot be citizens. They cannot own property. They have no say in who they marry. And the head of a household has legal authority over every person in it. We're talking life and death authority. Elaine grows up in this world knowing it's wrong. She's from Earth. She remembers equality. And that tension is the engine of the entire first book. When Elaine is young, her childhood best friend dies from an infection that Elaine tried to help heal. She blames herself because, in a way, her own error is what caused the infection to spread. And at 8 years old, she makes an oath, a healer's oath, that the system then enforces. That oath becomes her entire identity and also a significant liability, because in a world where everything is trying to eat you, a character who is oath-bound not to let sentient beings die has some very interesting problems to solve. As she gets older and a forced marriage with a threatening suitor starts to close in, Elaine makes a break for it. She joins Artemis, one of the only female rangers in the kingdom, and basically Elaine's hero. And the rest of the book follows the beginning of her ranger journey. That's the setup. And it's a unique setup. A healer protagonist in a LitRPG is rare. And the Roman-inspired world with dinosaurs and a magic system layered on top is distinctive. The stakes feel real in a way that a lot of progression fantasy doesn't manage, because it's not just, will she survive the dungeon? It's, will she survive the society? But here's what I need to tell you before you go buy this book. Elaine knows things that almost no one in Palos knows. She has Earth memories. She understands biology, germ theory, and how infections spread. She's been in this world long enough to understand the rules, and she makes choices throughout this book that frustrate a significant number of readers. So the question I want you sitting with for the next few minutes is this: is that a character flaw or a feature? Because the answer to that question is going to tell you everything about whether this book is for you. Okay, let's talk about what readers actually fight about. The number one point of contention is the sexism. Specifically, why does it exist in a world with magic, and why does Elaine put up with it? So here's the case for it. Palos is a world that's only about 5,000 years old. Humans are new here. They spent most of that time just trying to not get eaten by the dinosaurs and monsters while building societies from scratch. The system gives everyone access to power, but most men spend their time in warrior-focused classes and most women in domestic ones, because that's just what survival looked like when the world was new. By the time the system is fully established, the power imbalance is already baked into the law. Women who don't have warrior-focused classes can't fight back, and the ones who do are too few and too isolated to change things from the inside. That's the argument the book's making anyway. A lot of readers find that genuinely compelling. Several specifically said they went in expecting to hate that setting and ended up feeling like it created a kind of tension they don't usually get from LitRPG. That every scene has something real at stake, because the consequences of a wrong move aren't just she loses a fight, her whole family gets sold into debt servitude. But there's a point of contention that I want to mention because I'm not sure exactly how this is going to land for you without reading it myself. There is a group of readers who cannot get past what they see as Elaine's acceptance of her situation. She's from Earth. She knows this is wrong. And for long stretches of the book, she just plays along. She doesn't push back. She doesn't organize. She doesn't use her Earth knowledge to look for cracks in the system. She mostly just moves through it. And for some readers, that passivity reads as a character failure that the child brain explanation doesn't fully cover. However, on the other side of the fence, other fans say that she doesn't just accept it. They say she despises it, but she knows she can't change it right now. She does actively fight to establish her place in this world, and though she has an impact, there's only so much within her power to change. So I guess take this with a grain of salt, and when you read, just make your own decision for it. I'm just the messenger. Now, I'm really trying to stay objective here so that my bias doesn't taint your experience or decision, but I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not a fan of that baked-in sexism. I'm really not. It's a hang-up for me. But let's continue with this first look and see where we go from here. So here's what the marketing is not telling you clearly. Book 1 does not have a standalone resolution. The book ends with Elaine joining the Rangers and heading out, and no major plot thread really gets tied off. So you are reading the first arc of a serial. If you go in expecting a complete story with a beginning, middle, and end, you will probably be frustrated. If you go in knowing it's essentially volume 1 of an ongoing series that happens to have been published in book form, you'll be fine. Multiple readers specifically said, don't bother with book 1 unless you are prepared to immediately read book 2. I think that's fair. I think this might be a symptom of the web serial format. We see this a lot with stories converted to book format from Royal Road and other web serial sites. Daily or weekly posts, chapter by chapter, require a different setup and a different chapter structure than a finished for you book that's published on Amazon. It's not always an issue with web serial books, but it's not uncommon either. So just keep that in mind. This seems to be an issue for this series. The second thing that catches readers off guard is the pacing of the first half. The childhood arc, Elaine growing up from baby to teenager, is slow. It's slice of life, it reads young, and it may test your patience before the Ranger section kicks in and the book finds its momentum. On Royal Road, Selkie Myth actually gave readers the option to skip the childhood arc entirely, but the published version doesn't have that option. So just know the first half is the hardest part and the back half is where most people fall in love with it. Now, from what I read in the reviews, I actually found something that surprised me. The make or break element for this book is actually not the sexism and it's not the LitRPG system. It's Elaine. And from what I read in reviews, our main character is very distractible. She's impulsive, she fixates on the wrong things at the wrong moments, she has an extremely hard time reading social situations. Her child brain biology compounds all of this. So for readers who see themselves in Elaine, she's one of the most refreshingly human protagonists the genre has produced. But for readers who want a protagonist who plays the system deliberately and climbs the ladder with intention, the experience is going to be a lot more frustrating. Some readers interpret Elaine as ADHD coded, pointing to her distractibility, her impulsivity. Okay, now I'm going to soapbox for a minute, so bear with me, okay? As someone with severe ADHD, reading about this instantly put me at attention, let's say. A lot of times ADHD is misrepresented as, lol, they can't pay attention, oh my god, squirrel, and that kind of character. And I hate it because it doesn't remotely capture the essence of the condition. There's this intense stigma around ADHD, and if someone is going to approach it, I believe they have a responsibility to do it correctly. I am not saying that Selkie Myth does it incorrectly. I am just saying this is a soapbox completely absent of this book. I'm absolutely just ranting here, so bear with me. Most people only know the hyperactive kid who can't sit still version, but ADHD actually comes in 3 presentations. The first is inattentive, where hyperactivity isn't really part of the picture. Instead, it's chronic disorganization, zoning out, forgetting things, and struggling to follow through with tasks. The second is hyperactive impulsive, which is closer to the stereotype. Lots of fidgeting, interrupting, acting before thinking, and difficulty staying in one place. The third is combined, which is exactly what it sounds like. Both sets of symptoms together. And also, this, I believe, is the most commonly diagnosed. I have combined ADHD, and it has severely impacted my life. It has held me back in so many things that I didn't start seeing true success in my life until I was medicated. The other thing worth knowing is that there aren't rigid buckets for this. A person's presentation can actually shift over time as they find coping mechanisms and evolve in their personality, especially since hyperactive symptoms tend to mellow out in adulthood, while inattentive ones often stick around and get harder and harder to ignore. Now, don't go diagnosing yourself or anything, but yeah, soapbox over. Now, I want to note that as far as I can tell, Selkie Myth has never explicitly confirmed that Elaine is neurodivergent, and the ADHD reading appears to be entirely fan-driven. Whether intentional or not, Elaine's neurodivergent presentation is part of what makes her feel distinct as a protagonist, even if the specifics are left open to interpretation. Now, who is going to love this? In my opinion, this book is for you if you read LitRPG or progression fantasy and you are tired of the same template, which tends to be male MC, combat-focused, power fantasy, harem adjacent. This is none of those things. If you've been looking for something that uses the genre's mechanics to tell a different kind of story with a character you don't usually see at the center of these books, Oathbound Healer is doing just that. I think you'll like this if you like character-driven stories where the world has genuine stakes. Not just will she survive the dungeon stakes, as I mentioned before, but actual social and political stakes that make every interaction matter. I think you will like this if you can tolerate a slow start and a protagonist who is messy in ways that feel human rather than heroic. And I think you'll like this if you are the kind of reader who really loves a long tail series, because book one is a beginning, not the complete experience. Now, who should skip this? Skip this if you need your protagonist to be instantly OP, an adult from the start, and ready for the power scaling right from the beginning. Elaine is not that, and she is not going to become that quickly. Skip this if you want a power fantasy where the LitRPG system is the whole point. If you need the numbers going up in every chapter, the system is here. It is interesting, but it is not the focus. It does impact the plot, obviously, but this is more about Elaine than the world, from what I can tell. Skip this if you want a standalone book with a satisfying resolution. Book one is not going to give you that. And skip this if the sexism in the world building is a hard stop for you, regardless of context or intent. Some readers can't make peace with it, and that is a completely valid place to land. So what's my verdict? Here's my opinion. Oathbound Healer is a good book with a rough exterior. The bones are genuinely strong. Distinctive world, a protagonist who stands out in the genre, stakes that feel real, and a magic system with more social and political imagination than you usually see. I also think the shortcomings of the pacing for book one are most likely due to the web serial format. I also think the pacing issues are a genuine thing to think about. It's not that you can completely skip all of book one, because you do need some of that context for the world building and jumping into the ranger arc that follows book one. So that can be a little bit of a slog. Again, no, that is not said with any disrespect, just kind of what I'm finding from all of the reviews. If you go in knowing that you're signing up for a slow start and a protagonist who may come across as frustrating at times, and if the idea of a healer-focused LitRPG with a female main character navigating a complex world sounds exactly like what you've been missing, then I think you're going to really enjoy this. Now, I said I'll be making 2 videos, and next week I'm dropping the full series overview for Beneath the Dragoneye Moons, all 16 books. What changes, what holds up, where it stumbles, and whether the 16-book commitment is worth your time. If you finished book one and you want to know if the series goes somewhere satisfying, that video is going to be for you. Subscribe so you don't miss it, and I'll see you there. Links to the book are in the description below. If you pick it up, please let me know in the comments what you think. I want to know if I called it for you or if I missed something. So I will see you next time, and with all my love, happy reading, darling. Bye.